Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for Tallinna Vesi's webinar to introduce the performance of the third quarter of 2015. Today's webinar is hosted by the Chairman of the Board, Karl Brookes, and Chief Financial Officer, Riina. After the presentation, you can ask questions by writing them on the panel on the right corner. Also, if you face any technical problems, please don't hesitate to let us know by writing them on the same panel on the right corner. We will now start with the presentation, for which I will hand over the turn for Karl Brookes. Good morning, Karl.
Thank you, Marilis. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us on the Q3 2015 webinar today. Before we commence with the usual operational and financial highlights, I wanted to share with you some recent and positive news related to Tallinna Vesi that has appeared throughout the Estonian media. As you can see in the first slide in the picture on screen, in early October we marked the completion of a very important environmental project where we constructed 3 fish ladders in the upstream catchment area, namely at Vaskjala, Saare and Konesaare. The purpose of these ladders is to allow migratory fish such as salmon and sea trout to navigate upstream without obstruction to their spawning grounds. And these projects were built in conjunction with the Environmental Investment Centre. Fish have already been observed travelling up these ladders, which is a testament to their viability and success. Also, we were very pleased to receive an award for having the best health and safety in Estonia at a recent award ceremony that was arranged by the Estonian Labour Inspectorate. This award was presented to us by Yevgeny Ossinovsky, who is the Minister for Health and Labour. And this is really something that we're proud of, and it provides external verification of the commitment shown by all ASTV staff with respect to health and safety. Okay, moving on to the usual business highlights. Our key challenge remains in resolving the ongoing tariff dispute and repairing the Tihasa collector located in the stream of each area. As you'll see from the operational and financial updates, the underlying performance of the business is strong, and we continue to provide an excellent service to our customers in Tallinn and some of the surrounding municipalities. This is further reinforced by our key performance indicators and our continued compliance with the services contract, which dictates strict performance criteria. I'll now provide a reminder of some of the background to the tariff dispute and also an update on recent developments. AS Tallinna Vesi has been in court dispute with the Competition Authority since 2011. This dispute arose because the Competition Authority has to date refused to approve annual water tariff applications submitted by the company, which is contrary to the terms of the original service agreement that was signed back in 2001 when the company was first privatised. In 2012, the Estonian courts deemed the tariff part of the service agreement to be an administrative contract and therefore deserves the full protection of the Estonian legal system. The submitted tariff applications are fully in accordance with the privatisation contract, partially sponsored by the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, and approved by the Government of the Republic of Estonia back in 2000. As mentioned previously, there are a number of legal routes being followed by the company, and I'll provide a brief update on those now. So first of all, the local court case. During 2015, we have had 3 local court hearings, with the final one occurring on the 18th of February. On the 5th of June, the Tallinn Administrative Court made their decision and dismissed ASTV's claim. The reasoning for the dismissal was finally received on the 12th of October 2015. The Administrative Court's opinion is that the tariff part of the service agreement, which has been deemed a public law contract by Estonian courts in 2012, is not binding on the Competition Authority. The company will appeal to the next court instance, which is in the District Court, within the 30-day stipulated deadline, and the appeal is due to be submitted on or around the 11th of November this year. Until the final verdict to the tariff dispute, the preliminary legal protection applied by Estonian courts remains in force, which in effect means that tariffs will remain frozen until the legal process has concluded. To avoid the expiry of the damages claim, in May 2014, Tallinna Vesi also submitted a claim against the Competition Authority, claiming compensation for potential damages of over €90 million for total losses over the lifetime of the international privatisation contract up until 2020. The latest undiscounted estimate for the claim is around €74 million, as there have been changes to actual CPI levels and volumes since calculating the value of the original claim. The claim for damages has been previously suspended by the courts until the final verdict has been reached. Okay, moving on to international arbitration. After 3 years of trying to negotiate a solution, the Supervisory Council of Tallinna Vesi decided to commence international arbitration proceedings against the Republic of Estonia for breach of the bilateral investment treaty between the Netherlands and the Republic of Estonia. It has been claimed that the Republic of Estonia has breached the fair and equitable treatment requirement by changes to the law and activities of the public authorities which have deprived AS Tallinna Vesi from tariffs approved according to the service agreement back in 2001 as part of the privatisation process. On the 17th of June this year, the timetable of the international arbitration proceedings was determined and the final hearing has been set for November next year, November 2016. The process remains ongoing and we have no further updates for the webinar, but of course we'll keep you informed by the investors section of the company's website as and when there are any significant developments. Further details of the case can also be found on the ICSID website, a link to which is included on our website homepage. So, in summary, and as stated on numerous occasions previously, the company remains open to further discussions related to a negotiated settlement. I'll now move on to the operational highlights for the first 3 quarters of this year. Our first priority is to provide customers with high quality and reliable drinking water supply and an environmentally compliant wastewater discharge service. Q3 2015 continues to be excellent in terms of operational network performance and the service given to consumers. The quality of water supplied to our customers remains very high, with 99.86% compliance being achieved against the stipulated standards, based on the 2,209 samples taken for the first 9 months of this year. During the 9 months, our laboratories have carried out over 18,000 water analyses of those samples. In Q3 2015, the performance of our network has once again been excellent. The leakage rate ended at 14.58% against a target of 17%, which is the lowest level in the company's history and represents best-in-class performance when compared to other European countries. Final effluent leaving the company's treatment plant at Palnisää has complied fully with all legal requirements, and pollution tax coefficient of 0.5% has therefore been achieved. Moving on to the repair of our collector at Strumi. In October last year we observed subsidence in the ground above the collector, indicating some form of damage below. The repair of the collector is technically challenged given its depth and the geology of the ground in which it is located. To date, we've had no disruption to our consumers and no environmental pollution incidents. On the 29th of April, the company signed a contract with the Finnish construction company Lemminkainen for construction works to be performed on the collector. The investment for the collector construction has been included within the 2015 investment plan, with an estimated cost of between 6 and 7 million euros. And as part of the construction will be finished in 2016, part of the investment is going to be carried forward now into 2016, and that will amount to roughly around 2.5 million euros. Repair works are ongoing and going well, but a little behind schedule due to the challenging soil conditions which have impacted the productivity. We are currently building a concrete cofferdam in the ground, and the difficult soil conditions have delayed that by a few weeks. The current plan is to have all major construction works completed by February of next year, but we will need to return in the spring to do the final greening and asphalting in the Streamer Beach area. As repeated previously, we do have contingency plans in place to mitigate against any incidents whilst repairs are ongoing, and we do not envisage any disruption to our consumers. As mentioned also before, United Utilities are providing continuous technical support and assurance throughout the repair phase. I'm now going to hand you over to Riina, who's going to take you through the financial highlights for the first 3 quarters of this year. Thank you, Riina.
Thank you, Karl, and good morning to everyone. Now I would like to give you the overview of the financial performance of Tallinna Vesi in the third quarter of 2015. I will start with the financial highlights and then we'll give more detailed overview about sales and costs. Group's total sales revenue was 6.3% or 0.8 million euros higher than in the third quarter of 2014. The sales of water and wastewater services has been relatively stable, and most of the increase came from higher construction and asphalting services revenues, which have increased by 252.9% or 0.7 million euros. The gross profit has been impacted from extra profit from construction and asphalting services in the third quarter by 1.1%, being 0.1 million euros higher than in the third quarter of last year. The operating profit has been lower by 6.8% or 0.4 million euros than in the third quarter of 2014. Ongoing local tariff dispute and international arbitration and related elevated legal expenses thereof have major impact on company's profitability. Net profit for the third quarter in 2015 has been lower than in 2014 by 12.5% or 0.7 million euros. Net financial expenses in the third quarter in 2015 compared to the same period in 2014 has been mainly affected by the impact of the negative change in the fair value of the swap contracts, offset by small interest costs. Eliminating the impact of the change in fair value of swap contracts, the net profit would have been lower than in the third quarter of 2014 by 2.4% or 0.13 million euros. Now let's move on to the next slide, and I will comment on the changes of revenues and expenses a bit closer. Let's start from the sales. As mentioned before, the total sales revenue for the third quarter have increased by 6.3% or 0.8 million euros. Total revenues from water and wastewater services were 0.1% or 0.02 million euros higher than in 2014, amounting to 12.1 million euros. As we are still operating with the frozen tariffs since 2010, the change in the revenues is solely driven by the consumption. In the third quarter in 2015, we can see a slight increase in both inside and outside area water and wastewater revenues. Whilst there is a slight 0.5% or 34,000 cubic meters decrease in the domestic consumption, amounting to 6.86 million cubic meters, we can see 1.7% or 39,000 cubic meter increase in the consumption of commercial sector, which is 2.41 million cubic meters. Most of the increase comes from industrial customer segment. Total volumes from outside areas have increased by 1.3% or 19,000 cubic meters. The increase is related to higher water volumes offset by smaller wastewater volumes from outside area compared to the 2014 comparative period. As mentioned before, in the third quarter of 2015, there has been a remarkable increase in relation to high construction and asphalting services revenues, which have increased by 252.9% or 0.7 million euros. 52% or 0.4 million euros of previously mentioned increase came from asphalting services and remainder from pipe construction. In 2014, revenues from asphalting services were minimal. This now takes us to the overview of costs. The company's underlying operating performance in the third quarter has been good, with an exception of elevated legal costs. The total cost of goods sold in the third quarter of 2015 have increased by 13.9% or 0.8 million euros compared to 2014 same period. Direct production costs were 1% or 0.02 million euros better than in the third quarter of 2014. The biggest impact on direct production costs comes from lower chemical costs, as less chemicals were used in wastewater treatment process. Lower chemical costs were offset by higher environmental taxes impacted by raising tax rates. Staff costs have increased due to higher headcount and increases in salaries compared to the third quarter of 2014. Higher number of staff is related to providing more efficient and broader range of in-source services and increase externally. Other costs of goods sold have increased by 42.9% or 0.6 million euros, which is mostly related to the higher construction and asphalting services related costs mentioned earlier. 39.8% or 0.58 million euros increase in administration expenses is mostly affected by the increased legal and consultation costs related to the tariff disputes. The company has ongoing tariff disputes locally and internationally, and the legal costs are expected to continue to be at a high level until the end of disputes. Net financial expenses have mostly been affected by the non-monetary revaluation of the fair value of the swap, having the negative net expense of 0.6 million euros year on year, offset by lower interest costs. If we would now move on to cash flows. The cash position as of 30th of September 2015 is strong. The company's cash balance stood at 35.3 million euros, forming 17.3% of the total assets. Compared to the end of the third quarter of 2014, the cash balance has increased by 3.3 million euros. The biggest contribution to the cash flows comes from the main operations. The company's collection of receivables continues to be strong. In the 9 months of 2015, net cash flows from investing activities resulted in a cash outflow of 1.98 million euros. The money paid for fixed assets has been showing an increase of 2.04 million euros compared to the comparative period in 2014. The drop in the compensations received from the pipelines by 2.29 million euros compared to 2014 is mainly related to the collections for extension program in 2014. Financing cash flows are affected by the reduction in interest payments by 0.44 million euros, which are related to the renewed swap contracts. Due to the change in dividend income tax rates, the income tax paid on dividends was 0.29 million euros lower, despite of the fact that the dividend payment in 2015 was made at the same amount as in 2014. I would like to thank you for your time and attention, and all your questions are really welcome now.
Thank you, Riina. We are expecting questions, and you can write them on the panel on the right corner, and I will read the question out loud. We will give it a bit time. We haven't received any yet. You're more than welcome to send one. If you don't have a question at the moment, you can also send them later via email to myself, Mari-Liis Miiado, or Riina Käi. The contacts have included in the presentation. Oh, we have a question. Perhaps it's too early to comment on potential dividends, but the CPI is minus 0.7 year-on-year in September. Would that imply some decline in the TBS, or would you expect to keep it flat? Thank you, Jonas. I will hand over to Riina for answer.
Thank you, Jonas, for your question. You're right about that. It is too early to talk about it yet, as dividends are decided usually in the beginning of the year. As you saw also from this year, as CPI was negative, this year we paid out flat dividends compared to 2014. I can't give you the forecast what will happen exactly in 2016 out of the profits in 2015, but currently we haven't changed the dividend policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions?
Okay.
We will give it a couple of more seconds. And again, you're more than welcome to send through questions. For me, it seems like there aren't any more questions. We would like to thank you for participation and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and have a nice day. And as Mari-Liis mentioned before, if you might have any further questions, you're more than welcome to send an email or give a call.
Thank you.